restless excellence doesn't rush discernment. Because insight without action actually turns into frustration. And action without discernment is harmful. I must say that since I've had that experience, that I have since had conversations with some mentees of mine who are in this place. And I've actually said to them, sometimes the answer isn't leaving. Sometimes the work is deciding how you want to stay, or whether staying is still integrity. And in doing that, realizing that staying doesn't automatically mean that you're settling. Let me repeat that. Staying doesn't automatically mean that you're settling. Staying can actually be conscious, and it can also be strategic. It can be the place where you continue to grow. And I must say, I've had those experiences, and when I realize that, it's like, Staying is aligned when you're still learning without disappearing. That means that your values are challenged, but not violated, and you're building capacity, not just enduring pressure. Now, the real question isn't how long you've been there. It's actually who you're allowed to be while you're there. Again, in whatever space you're occupying. Because the moment staying requires you to shrink, to even silence yourself, or to trade your well-being for belonging, that's no longer alignment. That's just survival, and that's not a good thing. That's actually when another thought starts to creep in. And what's that thought? It's about, should I leave? And I can also tell you from personal experience that leaving, if you ultimately decide to do that, it gets a lot of judgment. Now, we call it quitting, but it may also be seen as giving up or not being resilient enough. Are we tired of being resilient? Anyway, I digress. Another episode. But sometimes you really have to realize that leaving isn't failure. Sometimes leaving is completion. Completion because you're actually saying, my work here is done. And recognizing in that moment that the role, the season, the space that you occupied actually gave you all that it can. In the past, I have told others throughout my career, as a non-negotiable, when it comes to deciding whether to leave, is actually when it's impacting your health. And that means that your health is starting to pay the price. Another reason is that your values are consistently compromised. And you feel like you're shrinking just to stay functional. That's not good. At this point, though, I want to be crystal clear. Restless excellence doesn't romanticize endurance, nor does it reward martyrdom. It actually honors your self-respect. Now, I'll say this. Deciding to leave a place doesn't erase what you built, nor does it invalidate your contributions that you've made there. It simply just creates space for what's next. What's next in your career? What's next in your life? And you know what? Here's the part we don't say often enough. When the time comes, you don't have to leave loudly to leave with power. Google cue Angela Bassett's scene in Waiting to Exhale. I don't know. That just came to me as a visual. Love that movie still. But there's also a third option we almost sort of never explore. And that third option, I'm going to call redefinition. Redefinition for me is staying, but refusing to stay the same. It's when you stop performing the role you were handed, and you actually start shaping the role you actually need. Now, redefinition can look like boundaries that weren't there before. And that may mean actually engaging in conversations you've been avoiding and actually renegotiating expectations. It's important during this stage to actually protect energy instead of constantly offering it. And yes, I must admit from personal experience, redefinition is uncomfortable. Because the moment you change how you show up, the system has no choice but to respond. Not everyone will like the version of you that's no longer overextending, because ultimately, not everyone is going to benefit from your clarity. But Restless Excellence teaches us this. Discomfort isn't always a sign you're wrong. Sometimes it's a sign you've stopped abandoning yourself. Let me repeat that. Discomfort isn't always a sign you're wrong. It's a sign that you've stopped abandoning yourself. So, how do you know which path is yours? Meaning, do you leave, do you stay, or do you redefine? Now, here's where I want you to pause. If nothing changed, if the role stayed exactly as it is, could you remain without feeling like you are betraying yourself? Now, the answer to that question really matters. I have another question I want you to answer. What would redefining this role require of you? Not just courage, because it actually would be courageous to do that, but from a capacity standpoint. Because clarity without capacity, it actually leads to resentment. And one more question I have for you. If you actually left, what part of yourself would you be protecting? Now, this isn't about escape. It's actually about self